We are truly delighted to have the time with the most respected, one of the most respected medical scientists in the world. Dr. Soumya Swaminathan is here with us. She's a former chief scientist of the World Health Organization, former director general of the Indian Council of Medical Research as well, and a pediatrician who has spent 4 decades of work on child health, infectious diseases, health systems. Really couldn't think of a better person than you, ma'am, to sort of understand both what's happening in clinics and also in policy rooms. So let me begin by asking you this. For several years, you have been speaking about the issue of air pollution. We have been constantly covering it as well. Why do you think air pollution does not become an urgent health issue, say like COVID or TB? Why is it, now that we know that air pollution will kill more people than the pandemic ever did, than COVID-19 ever did, or even more than tobacco claims to be, taking lives of? Why is it that we don't see it as an urgent health problem?
No, thank you. That's a very important question. And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One is, of course, that air pollution is something which is sort of invisible, though some days you can definitely see the smog. But even in cities where the air looks like it's okay, it's actually not okay. And you only know that when you measure and you look at the AQI and you look at the PM 2.5 and PM 10. So for most people, it may not strike them as a huge urgent problem. Second is it's slow. So you do have severe health effects from air pollution, but they don't happen overnight, unlike COVID, where you get sick right away, or you see people around you getting sick. And of course, a pandemic is something that creates so much of panic and fear. Whereas here, it is slow, it is invisible, it is acting on our bodies all the time, but it takes years sometimes to see the impact. Therefore, you don't necessarily make a connection between your exposure to air pollution and the health problems that you're facing today. So I think that's one reason. The second is that COVID, for example, everybody knew that it was a pandemic, it was caused by a virus, that the health department was in charge and had to act and was acting and so on, and everybody else was supporting. Here, the actions have to happen across many different sectors: industry, agriculture, transport, construction, solid waste management, indoor cooking fuel. And therefore, it's almost like a diffuse responsibility, and therefore it sort of gets diluted.
But talking about diffused responsibility, some people still think that pollution is a Delhi problem. Well, now we have decades of data really telling us very clearly that this is a North India problem. It's an Indian metro problem as well. So much so that 10 out of the 15 most polluted cities in the world are Indian cities. Do you think that narrative also needs to be specified, needs to be taken to the politicians?
You're very right. I would say that air quality or air pollution is a national problem. The reason is there's a lot of data now. Of course, we have many more monitors than we used to have in the past. And if any day you pick up the newspaper and look at the AQI from the different cities around, like today's newspaper, for example, I saw that almost all cities that were reporting were in the red. I've personally been in at least Bangalore, Bhubaneswar, Mumbai, Delhi, and Chennai in the last 2 weeks. And nowhere was the air quality anything that we could call good. So it's a national problem. It's a rural and an urban problem. The NCR region, for many reasons, gets a lot of attention and focus, particularly in these winter months, because there are also climatic variables which make the air circulation very slow and so on. But that whole Indo-Gangetic plain is impacted. And we have less monitors in rural areas. And so we focus on cities. In fact, our National Clean Air Program focuses on cities. And so we tend to neglect the rural areas. But I would say that 95% of the country does not have air quality according to whether, our own national standards, which is 40 micrograms per cubic meter, let alone the WHO standards, which is that it should be less than PM 2.5 should be less than 5 microgram per meter cube. So we're still far away from that. We need to have a stepwise approach, of course. We can't go from where we are to 5. But we can go to the WHO intermediate target, which is less than 35 micrograms per meter cube. But every millimeter difference we make will have an impact on our health. So it's really important not to get disheartened and say that things are so bad we can't do anything. No, we can do, and we can bring it down. And every little bit we do will show a good impact on our health.
Right. 95% of the country is not breathing good air. I think that's quite a figure that all of us should wake up to. But put on your sort of pediatrician hat for a minute, ma'am, and help us understand this. You know, we've constantly been headlining stories trying to get the awareness of parents as well, highlighting that a child in Delhi smokes about 15 to 10 cigarettes a day without even knowing, without just breathing. Now, if every parent could understand one science-backed truth about air pollution from you today, what would you tell them?
Well, one has to do everything to protect yourself, and particularly small children, because they're smaller, they breathe faster, they are shorter, they are closer to the ground, so they actually inhale more. Plus, their organs are developing, their heart, their lung, their brain, all of their organs are developing. So it's actually very harmful for young children to be exposed to the same levels of air pollution as we are, because it's going to impact their future cognitive development. Now, this is very scary. So, what can we do to protect ourselves and our children? Well, avoid the exposure as much as possible. Now, this is easier said than done, but in the most polluted parts of the day, which is generally the colder parts of the day, keep the child indoors, keep the doors and windows closed. Certainly don't go out and exercise or play during those periods, because the faster you breathe, the more pollutants you're going to be taking in. Again, an N95 mask will be able to filter out these particles, but for younger children, it's difficult to get them to keep N95 masks on, but perhaps if they are in a very outside and they can wear an N95 mask when they're moving around outside, that would be a good one. Air purifiers, again, expensive. Not everyone can afford, but I wish that schools would invest in air purifiers, that, you know, wherever one can put those in, because that certainly does help. Of course, you have to keep changing the filters and so on. And then watch out for any signs or symptoms of your child, you know, getting breathless, getting a cough and cold, and obviously get medical attention early on.
Ma'am,
But
doctors in Delhi are now... Sorry, the doctors in...
I know
go
doctors
ahead.
are saying go, you know, doctors are often telling parents move away, but again, that's not practical. Yeah. So I think the problem is that individual protective action can be taken by some, maybe not all. It can help to some extent, but ultimately the air is common to all of us. It's a public good. And so we have to clean the air. That's going to benefit everyone, you know, rich or poor. The other solutions are will only impact a few.
Right. Ma'am, but I want to get down on the question of accountability here. This is a public health crisis, perhaps the biggest we have seen in India in far too long. Who do you think should be held accountable here for this health fallout of pollution? Environment Ministry, Health Ministry, local governments, like where does the buck stop really?
So this is a classical case where I think it is a collective responsibility. Now, of course, one says that. Then next step is, okay, somebody's got to take charge, to coordinate, you know, to have a plan, to have metrics, to have indicators, to have very specific actions, and to follow those through. So I am looking at it something like how we tackled COVID. We had an empowered committee of secretaries. How did we do Swachh Bharat mission? How are we doing the Jal Jeevan mission? These are massive national programs where, you know, we've set very ambitious targets. We've got and we've achieved most of them. So I feel that it is possible to do, but because it's a topic where you have to have action across. You need financing, you need good governance, and there needs to be an empowered group of people that's actually at the top monitoring what is happening. And now I think that we have enough data, and we have enough airshed analysis, and we have enough science-backed solutions. So we are not short of solutions or anything, but we need very strict enforcement and implementation.
A select committee, that sounds like a good idea. We really hope the government sort of takes that up as well. Ma'am, I also want to understand from you a little bit of what the future looks like here. If pollution levels remain the same, what do you think will be India's disease profile looking like in the next 10 years? Are we heading into a silent sort of chronic disease epidemic of sorts, very, very unaware, very, very complacent in handling in air pollution?
So over the years, as we've seen the risk factors for health, you know, there's this analysis that's done every couple of years. Air pollution has been steadily climbing up as a major risk factor for health, and other things like water and sanitation and all those, many of the infectious diseases, those have, we've done well on them and they've gone down the list. So the number one is dietary risks, the food, the nutrition that we get. That's the number one risk factor for health in India today. The number two risk factor is air pollution. And this is contributed to by many sectors, but also by household air pollution, that is by burning of solid mass. We know that many people are still using biomass for cooking and for heating, and also waste burning happening all over the country. Big source of pollution, which is often neglected. So it is the number two cause of, and if you look at cancer deaths today, lung cancer, smoking has gone down, but pollution has increased as a cause for lung cancer among non-smokers. If you look at COPD, chronic lung disease, heart attacks, even dementia, diabetes, there's more and more data linking air pollution to all of these chronic diseases. And we know India has a young population. We talk about our demographic dividend and the fact that this is a huge economic asset for us. Well, don't address air pollution, we're going to have an unhealthy population and we're going to lose that demographic dividend. So I think this is something which has huge economic and public health importance. And if we address it, we will see the gains very, very quickly.
But what is the best way to address it then? You talked about a select committee. Is there one policy implementation that you would like India to get in as well? If you had the power, say, to implement one policy that would really cut down India's pollution burden and, dramatically so, what would you say?
You see, I would say that we have to implement the policies we have. We do have an act, a Clean Air Act, which specifies certain emission norms. All industries are supposed to, have the real-time monitoring of their emission norms, and the pollution control boards actually do have access to such data. So that's a big source, we know. But so is construction. Again, we have norms for what the construction industry is supposed to do to reduce the dust. Similarly, we know that transport, the older the vehicle, the more the emissions. We have the standards for the BS6 and so on. But we also need investment in more public transport, particularly with clean energy, with electric buses and so on. So, other cities and other countries have done it. We can really just take the lessons from there, of course, adapt it and contextualize it. But like I said, we've got to get very serious about acting. Beijing did that. Beijing was the worst city in the world. You couldn't look out of your window and see anything. It was that thick a smog. London has done it before. Mexico City has done it. Los Angeles has done it. So, and there are cities in India that have made a very good start towards it. So I think that we have the solutions, but the implementation is key, and there we need everyone to come together. You see, by everyone, I mean all political parties must come together. Citizens and governments must come together. Center and state governments must come together. And sometimes you have to also work with other countries, because the Indo-Gangetic Plain, we have Nepal, we have Bangladesh, we have Bhutan, we have Pakistan on this side. So there are common elements, that need to be addressed if we need, because air doesn't stop at any boundaries, national or state. But we can start with a national plan. And then we do have also a plan that was developed a few years ago, which was for the countries of the Indo-Gangetic, with the bordering region. So there is a plan for that as well. And there are goals that have been set for 2035. So there are many things which have already started. I think the thing is really to come together now and agree to work together to address this.
Agree to work together to address this in a country where Delhi says it's Haryana's problem, Haryana says it's Punjab's problem. At the end of the day, it is everybody's problem and only expanding by the day. We really hope your words reach them, ma'am. My last question, and this is a bit of a big picture question here. You've spent your entire life turning evidence into action. If India could sort of make just one mindset shift on air pollution, because you and I both know we don't see it as a problem as big as it is. People think we are calling doomsday, but it's not an exaggeration. This will happen to our kids. Their lungs, their cognitive skills, their IQ, their overall development is going to falter, of generation altogether. So what do you suggest that one mindset shift on air pollution should be?
Well, I think it's is, as you said, recognizing that even though it may be invisible and silent and sort of chronic and not an acute thing, it is having a huge impact on all of our lives and our health, especially the next generation, the younger generation. And secondly, that we can all do something actually about it. You know, we can reduce the use of cars, we can do carpooling, we can take public transport, we can walk and cycle when possible. We should not burn anything. If we see anyone who's burning because they have to and they have no other choice, let's find a solution for them. I know in Delhi, for example, you know, many housing societies are given heaters so that the watchmen who are sitting in the cold don't have to burn things to keep themselves warm. But there's a lot of waste burning that goes on, you know, which again, we should not be burning. So people, the mindset is when you burn, you know, you're getting rid of the old, and, you know, there's often traditionally thought of as a good way of getting rid of waste. Well, it's a very harmful way of getting rid of waste. So I think let's examine also so like we say, Jan Bhagidari is needed for many of these big movements, but then we need these set of 4 or 5 actions that individuals need to do, apart from, of course, protecting yourself. But then there's a whole lot of actions, you know, that need to be done actually by the government departments as well. So if all of that happens together, then I think we can really start seeing a very big difference.
All right. So partnership within the states, partnership with state and center, and partnership of public and private as well. I think all of us need to work together on this air pollution crisis, because it indeed is one. It's a matter of recognizing it at an urgent level. Thank you so much, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, for joining us here on India Today.
Thank you.